movie recap in a flash. We bring the drama, the action, and the twists. In minutes, our movie begins with a man waking up and finding himself trapped in a cube-shaped room. He starts exploring the surroundings and discovers that the cube has 6 doors, each leading to another cube. He opens one of the exits and jumps into the next cube, but suddenly, it turns out to be a trap. A metal grid strikes him, cutting him into small pieces. Meanwhile, in another cube, a man named Quentin regains consciousness. He cautiously moves between the cubes until he finds one with an unconscious man inside. From the name written on his clothes, he learns the man's name is David. They try to wake him, and soon, one of the exits opens, revealing a woman looking at them. Quentin hides, grabs her, and pulls her to the ground, suspecting she is responsible for their situation. He is about to hit her, but realizes she is just as scared as they are, concluding she is another prisoner. He calms her down, assuring her he won't hurt her. We then learn that her name is Helen, and she is a doctor. Suddenly, they hear the sound of someone crying. By locating the source of the sound, they find another cube and open the exit to let a terrified young girl named Levin inside. Levin is confused and doesn't understand what's happening. The ceiling exit opens and a 5th person named Rennie enters. Helen asks Quentin why he moves cautiously between the cubes, and he explains that he discovered traps in certain cubes. Levin is terrified by the situation, and Quentin notices her glasses have fallen. He returns them to her and reassures her, saying he is a police officer and won't leave her behind. Everyone shows signs of fear, except for David, who remains calm, as though he knows something he isn't sharing. Helen checks on him and finds a minor head injury. Rennes, however, doesn't focus on them and starts opening the exits around them. He uses his shoe, throwing it into the room before entering to check for traps. When one of the shoes burns, they deduce the room has a motion sensor. Quentin calms them down and asks how they ended up in this place, but no one remembers. It turns out they were living their normal lives when they suddenly woke up here. They keep hearing something moving outside the cube, but don't know what it is. Levin suggests staying in one place until someone rescues them, but Quentin disagrees, saying no one is coming. He theorizes the place is a maze with one exit, and that they need to navigate the right cubes to find it. They decide to test each room using their shoes. While moving to another cube, they notice that each exit has a 9-digit code. They guess the number might represent the room, but it's a very large number, implying there are over 400 million cubes in the maze. Helen fears they won't survive without food or water for more than 3 days, which isn't enough time to explore all the cubes. Rennes uses a clever trick to conserve energy by pressing his button to save his strength. They decide to follow his lead and move to the next cube. Although the shoe test shows no danger, Rennes refuses to let them enter, saying the air is dry, indicating a chemical sensor that detects living beings. They are impressed by his intelligence and realize he's a skilled criminal who has escaped prison 6 times before. He assures them they are safe with him, but admits he's only helping because he needs their shoes, not because he cares about them. While moving to the next cube, Rennie jumps in, but suddenly, a toxic substance is released. They rush back to their cube, trying to save him, but his body begins to disintegrate, and he dies. The remaining 4 are shocked and terrified, realizing the traps are designed by someone smarter than all of them. They feel hopeless and desperately want to know why they are in this place. Quentin is convinced that each person has a specific role to play, and that they must work together to escape. He believes his role as a police officer is his strength, while Helen's talent as a doctor could help save anyone who gets injured. He asks Levin about her talent, but she claims to be an ordinary girl with no special skills. He then questions David, who says he's just an average employee with no talents either. While talking, they notice that all personal belongings were taken from them, except for Levin's glasses. Quentin suspects the glasses might be useful and asks Levin to focus on the numbers at each exit. Levin discovers that all the rooms without traps have non-prime numbers. This reveals her talent for mathematics and numbers. To confirm her theory, they throw a shoe into a room with a non-prime number and find it safe. They rely on her calculations to move between cubes, but she needs time to determine whether a number is prime or not. Quentin tries to pass the time by talking about himself, saying he has 3 children and a wife he divorced. Quentin notices that David refuses to cooperate, making him suspicious. They reach a cube surrounded by rooms with trap numbers, leaving only the ceiling exit. Quentin uses his physical strength to climb up and check it. As he opens the exit, a young man falls into their cube. They learn his name is Kazan, and he has special needs. The group feels he will be a burden, but Helen refuses to abandon him and calmly helps him cooperate. They reach another cube, and Quentin jumps in alone. Suddenly, he notices something around him and realizes he's trapped. Using his intelligence, he escapes, but sustains a minor leg injury. Helen bandages his wound so they can continue their mission. Kazan becomes frightened by their loud voices and starts crying, which frustrates Quentin, and he orders them to silence him by any means while still in the cube they encountered. David goes to him and tries to calm him down, and during this time, Quentin seizes the opportunity to talk to the 2 women. He says he suspects David because he has been silent the whole time, acting as if he's a spy and involved in everything that has happened. He seems confident in his claims because he knows how to read people well, but the 2 women remain unconvinced. David returns with Kazan after managing to calm him down, and the 4 of them deduce that the matter of the numbers is more complicated than they initially thought. Quentin and David start arguing, and Quentin insists on being the first to speak in the adjacent room. David refuses, which makes Quentin even more suspicious of him. David responds, saying that all their attempts will fail because there is no way out at all. The 4 of them conclude that David knows something and force him to speak. David is compelled to confess, revealing that he was one of the engineers who built the outer shell of the big cube. However, he was isolated in an office and therefore doesn't know any details about the project, the reason they were imprisoned inside, or the meaning of the numbers. He also doesn't know who owns the project, admitting that he was merely following orders without understanding the details. Quentin gets angry and starts hitting David, but Helen calms him down, saying that David is the only one who knows anything about the building and might help them escape. Levin begins conversing with David, learning from him the dimensions of the building from the outside. Using her knowledge of the dimensions of each room, she estimates the approximate number of rooms and deduces that the numbers at each room represent coordinates that can help them determine their location within the big cube. She figures out that they are 7 rooms away from the edge of the building. With no other option, they decide to follow her lead. Quentin insists that David should enter the rooms first, since he is the least useful among them, and if he dies, they wouldn't lose much. However, Helen refuses, saying it's only fair to take turns. They reach a certain room and are surprised by its coordinates, as the numbers suggest it is outside the cube. They enter and discover that all the surrounding rooms are booby-trapped. They start searching for the easiest trap to bypass and find one that is triggered by sound. Quentin, afraid of Kazan, suggests locking him in a room and leaving him behind because he wouldn't be able to pass through the sound-triggered trap. However, Helen refuses to abandon him. They explain the danger to Kazan and instruct him not to make any noise. They begin crossing the trap one by one until it's Quentin's turn, who is the last to cross. Kazan accidentally laughs, putting Quentin on the verge of death, but he escapes the trap at the last moment. After this incident, Quentin attempts to hit Kazan, but Helen intervenes to protect him. Quentin and Helen argue, and it becomes evident that Quentin is a hot-tempered person who cannot control himself. Helen remarks that it's no wonder his wife left him, which enrages Quentin, prompting him to slap her. Later, David opens the exit at their level, and they discover they have reached the edge of the building. However, they are at a very high altitude with no means to descend. Helen volunteers to go out and explore the area. They all take off their clothes to make a long rope, and Helen holds one end of the rope while the others hold the other end to secure her. Helen moves cautiously, searching for anything that might help them. While she's moving, the rope slips from their hands, and Helen is about to fall. Quentin manages to grab the rope at the last moment and holds onto Helen's hand. However, he decides to let her fall and die. Claiming he couldn't hold onto her, he pretends to be shocked and upset. Levin is deeply affected by what happened and says she can't think clearly anymore. Quentin suggests they rest for a while. While they sleep, the room starts moving, but they don't notice anything. When Levin wakes up, she discovers that Quentin has moved her to the adjacent room, intending to continue solving the puzzle alone. He claims the others are only slowing them down. He tries to assault Levin, but she resists and refuses to leave without the others. Meanwhile, David and Kazan manage to reach the room they are in. David confronts Quentin, challenging him. Quentin tries to intimidate them, saying that Helen died as soon as she crossed him. They deduce that Quentin killed her, leaving them shocked. Quentin starts attacking David, then opens the cube beneath them and throws him in. However, they are surprised to find David laughing and entering the room below, where they discover Ren's corpse. They are shocked because they had left the body in a room far away from their current location. They realize that the rooms are moving, which explains the loud noises they've been hearing. Levin focuses on the numbers again and discovers that they not only indicate their location in the cube, but also help determine where to move and when they'll reach the cube's edge. However, the calculations are complex and require a lot of time. She recalls the room they entered earlier, whose coordinates suggested it was outside the cube. She deduces that it serves as a bridge. If they can reach it and stay inside until it completes a full cycle and returns to its position, they will find the exit. They decide to search for this room quickly before the rooms start moving again. Levin concentrates on the numbers and discovers that the rooms with traps are not those consisting of prime numbers, but those formed by powers of prime numbers. The problem is that the calculations are extremely difficult and time-consuming. Suddenly, Kazan begins to speak and can calculate the powers effortlessly. They discover he is a math genius, and if they had abandoned him, they would never have been able to escape the maze. He helps them solve the puzzles. As they move between rooms, David attempts to close the exit on Quentin to get rid of him. However, Quentin manages to escape and chases after them, seeking revenge on David. David sets a trap for Quentin by opening the exit in the floor of the cube. Quentin falls and dies. The three remaining members rejoice at finally getting rid of him. They continue their search for the bridge room and reach a certain room. Levin finds a part of her lens, concluding that this is the room they began in. According to her calculations, there's one room left, and they reach the bridge room. Indeed, they arrive at the room representing the bridge. When they open its exit, they are faced with a strong white light, concluding their plan was successful and celebrating. However, the surprise is that David refuses to leave, stating he has no reason to return to a world filled with human stupidity. Suddenly, Levin is stabbed from behind and dies, revealing that Quentin was the one who killed her. They are shocked to discover he is still alive. He then approaches David and stabs him as well. Kazan is terrified by what's happening, but manages to walk toward the white light. Quentin tries to follow him, but the exit suddenly closes as the room begins to move, trapping Quentin and killing him. Thus, Kazan becomes the only one to solve the puzzle and escape the maze safely. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos.